and welcome to the Undisputed Heavyweight Champion of the World show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host, as always, Richard Tiemann. This is the award-winning Fan Show. A happy how do you do Thursday, Fan Nation. It's been a great week. Kind of a weird week, really. Last night, man, it felt like a Friday, but it was a Wednesday. And then here we are, Thursday. Got one more day of the week. It's the last day of the Fan Show week, for those of you that go by the Fan Show calendar. It's a great calendar. It is a great calendar, might I say, because you only have to work 3 days a week and you get 4 days off. That's how the Fan Show calendar works. So if I got paid the same as I do to work 5 days a week and only get 2 days off, I feel like a lot more people would understand, appreciate, and respect the Fan Show week if that were the case. But it's not quite yet. However, the month of May has just begun. We are 3 days in, and it has been a great month for the show. Of course, last week had Mick Foley on. Last night, Mick Foley was in Spokane, 20 years of hell. And, I'll be honest, I didn't know what to expect going into an event like this. I really did not, because Jake the Snake Roberts does a comedy tour. Like, he tells funny stories. And when I interviewed Mick, I said, so you're doing comedy stuff? And he's like, no, man, we're talking about the Hell in a Cell match and a few other stories. If they happen to be funny, they happen to be funny. But he's like, it's not comedy. It was hilarious last night, though. I will say this. Mick has got a real knack for what he did last night, and that's tell stories. The man's recollection of yesteryear, spot on, so good. Just the subtle details of everything. I don't know how good the memory is for him of like recent stuff, but man, that man can recall the finer details of house shows from the 80s. Probably better than I can. Monday Night Raw from last week. So it was a great time. James the Sports Guy was there, as well as my buddy Andrew Bergdorfer. He was there. Ryan Levy, who's been a guest on the show. We were all there having a great time listening to Mick tell stories, and there was a Q&A afterwards. Got to get a pic with Mick, and he signed the belt. First person to ever sign my belt. And who better, right? Mick frickin' Foley, 3-time WWE champion, hardcore legend, is one of the most well-respected and beloved wrestlers of all time, and has a losing record. It's incredible. So that was a great time last night. Really wish it would have been Friday, because going into work today was a pain. We didn't go out and party last night. It was just like, you wanted that to be like the start to your weekend, because then you could sleep in today, and then you have tomorrow off, and then back to work, But no, right back into it today, and then back into it tomorrow. But nonetheless, we're not here to talk about the non-Fan Show week, the regular week. We're here to talk football and nonsense. Tonight is the last night of our Niners week here on the show. I'm sure we'll have another one. It just seemed like, post-draft was the best time, and I had two of my favorite Niner people available this week to talk. Different nights, as it were, so that worked out. And then added in a third. So, yeah, it became Niners week. So that was a lot of fun to recap the draft. Robert Alberino, the vice president and executive producer for the 49ers, was on Tuesday. 49er Mark, the super fan, was on last night. Tonight, James LeBreton, you guys know him from Niner Noise and 49ers Web Zone. He lives in Florida. He's a Florida faithful, which is fantastic. So he's going to give us his thoughts on the draft coming up here in about 10 minutes. That's why we had a little bit of a later start time, because both of my guests couldn't come on until about 10 minutes after my guests are regularly scheduled. And I don't know how many people are tuning in live. This is only day 3 of the new time, after it changed time for 2 weeks just last week. But, you play the hand you're dealt, and that's what I've done with the show. So much so that, I got a sense last night from a few people of, like, jealousy. Because unfortunately, the Mick Foley event was not a meet and greet afterwards, where you go, you shake his hand, you say thank you, and I loved it, or whatever, you're my hero, you take a picture and you move on, like all the comedians do. No, this was, you could buy merch, and that was it. Mick went back to the green room. because I did the interview with him, and his agent was there, who I'd worked with tirelessly. Remember, 27 emails later. Jordan's such a cool guy. So we talked, and I said, "Hey, do you think I could get a pic with Mick for the website and thank him personally?" Because I'm a very personable person like that. If I can thank the person, I will do that. I want to do that. I want to thank the person, not their agent or their go-between, their middleman. And it's nothing against them, because they did all the work, but it's like they had to ask, and that person had to agree and say yes, knowing that their schedule is extremely busy. So I always like to, if I can shake their hand and thank them for their time, I do that, and that's how I've always been. So, there may have been some jealousy because I was one of the few that got to meet Mick and get a picture with him. And it's something that is very, still, you have to pinch me about that. I know, jealousy, right? All through middle school, high school, I was never the guy that people were jealous of. I was the guy that was jealous of everybody else, the talented and gifted athletes, the guys that were good with the ladies, or the guys that were math whiz, or even the guys that were good at video games, because I lived in that transition from game nerd to like, oh, you game, and like, yeah, let's play some Halo afterwards. And I sucked at first person shooters, man. Ugh. So there was a lot for me to be jealous of. So for people to be jealous of me, it's a very new feeling. It's a very weird thing. And it's one that I don't like. I really don't like it at all, because I don't feel like there's a lot to be jealous of, because I know where I've come from and I know how much work that I've done. For those of you friends of mine on Facebook, made a post today, perfect fitting for Throwback Thursday, about what had happened 3 years ago. And, I don't want to get into it right now, but times were tough. This was, the show had started, but it wasn't even called the F.A.N show yet. It wasn't 3 nights a week. It wasn't live. But I had to go and pawn all my equipment like 3 months after I've gotten it. So it was tough times. It really was. But here we are. And I'm not going to say that I'm living and sitting pretty. I'm really not. We're still in a 1-bedroom apartment with no balcony, no view, except for the apartment behind us. And 1 car. I've taken the bus. Wife will take the bus, and we go to a laundromat to do our laundry, and we don't have a dishwasher. We have cut corners of luxuries that some people overlook as luxuries. We live without those for the simple fact that we want money to go towards something to making our lives better. And that for me is the show. That for my wife is her career in being a stylist. So we sacrifice the things that we can live without of so that we can put more money into the things that we want to live with. And that's doing something that we're passionate about. So I get that sometimes it can seem like I just get these privileges. I get into a comedy show for free because the club knows me, or I interviewed the comedian, or I get this autograph or this photo because this reason or another. And it's just like, I worked very hard to get to this status, and I don't even know what this status is. So, I mean, people can be jealous, people can hate, but don't be jealous or hate for the wrong reason. Okay? It's plain and simple as that. If you hate or jealous because this isn't happening to you, I can't help you there, but I understand that it happens because we're all human, right? But if you think that these things have just been given to me, or that I've just been one very lucky son of a bitch, you are incorrect. And I will be the first one to tell you that. So a lot of things still surreal to me. And that was sort of the feeling last night. Things are very surreal to me still with the show. And I don't think they'll ever stop being surreal to me until I've been doing this for like 15 years. And the show pays for itself and much, much more. And, just things like that. So I continue to keep my head down, be as humble as I can about it, and be as thankful as I can about the opportunities given to me that I have asked for and worked for. And I go about my day. I go about my business. So if anybody, for whatever reason, wants to have a conversation about how I do it, because that is a question that I get a lot, and it still surprises me. How do I do what? What are you talking about? How do you get this guest? How do you get into this event? Well, I ask, but there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, even Andy, the guy who wrote and composed my entrance song on here, the F.A.N theme, the Phantom, he asked me, because he wasn't on Volume, the Spokane, basically downtown River Park Square block party music festival. And I said, why aren't you on that? And he's like, I didn't get asked. And I was like, well, did you ask? He's like, I did, but apparently it was too late. And he's like, I need to get better about asking. He's like, any advice? And he was serious. And I was like, yeah, here's what I would do if I were you. And he's like, I didn't even think about that, but you make a great point. I'll try that next time. So, I mean, if you guys want to have a conversation, I'm here. Like, I don't consider it anything special that I've done to book the guests or get into the events that I have, but I do know what my process was. And if that's not something that you have done or thought of, I'd be more than happy to share that with you. Why not? So that's going to do it for my little opening spiel. There's very few headlines, but hey, why not? Let's get through them real quick. And let's not forget that the headlines for all of May are brought to you by Dynamite Enterprises, your one-stop shop for anything customized, from apparel, screen printing, embroidery, stickers, banners, trophies, foam fingers, coasters, and pens. Dynamite has you covered. I mean, pretty much any item you can think of, that you can imagine, that you can muster, that you need your logo on, or just even some simple artwork, they will get you hooked up. Customize your world with Dynamite Enterprises at dynamiteenterprises.com. Ask for Ethan and tell him the F.A.N show sent you. He's going to hook you up, because Dynamite Enterprises and their products made me some shirts. They are dynamite! And the headlines today, pretty simple. Matt Ryan is now the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, $150 million. $100 million of that is guaranteed. It's a 5-year deal, but my God, everybody went nuts over Jimmy G. And I was like, give it a couple of months. And boom, Matt Ryan and the Falcons agree to a 5-year, $150 million deal. Cowboys tight end Jason Witten officially retires after 15 seasons. He will take John Gruden's place in the Monday night broadcast booth, which I think is a huge thing, but it's going to be kind of one step forward, 2 big steps back if McDonough is still up there, because I don't know. I try to like him because, you know, you try to respect your colleagues and stuff in the business, but that man he needs a personality. Mike Tirico had a personality. McDonough, it's like a wind-up toy. It's like pull his string. You know, and I don't know if that's something that he can work on. Obviously, he's got the job and I don't, so he must be doing something right. But, I mean, you know, whatever. It is what it is, and that's something that maybe I'm a little jealous about. On the subject of jealousy, Lions send defensive tackle Akeem Spence to the Dolphins. Jets officially part ways with quarterback Bryce Petty after picking up Darnold. I think that writing was on the wall for like a long time. Tony Gonzalez believes that Jason Witten is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't really know anybody that would not agree with that statement. Eagles pick up Peterson's option through 2020. Packers GM is confident that the Rodgers deal is coming soon. NFC North draft grades are out. And Peter King leaves Sports Illustrated after 29 years. And I will tell you straight up right now that I'm not a Peter King fan, and you can call me crazy. I have my reasons, I really do. But man, there is just it's one of those scenarios where it's like if somebody didn't like good old JR Jim Ross, you'd be like, why? And I'm more than happy to tell you if you guys want to hit me up what my beef is with Peter King. But I am not a Peter King guy, and maybe these last few years have not been an accurate reflection or depiction of Mr. King. But man, those are the years I know, right? And he's going to be one of those guys, and I'm going to be that guy that didn't like it. Not a Peter King guy. So I guess, you know, happy trails, Peter King. Sports Illustrated, though, man, how overrated is that magazine as far as you don't want to be on the cover. If you're trying to win a championship, you don't want to be on that cover. No. If you're trying to have a good season, you don't want to be on that cover. As far as NHL postseason is concerned, the Vegas Knights and San Jose Sharks are tied at 2-2. This series is shaping up to be a great one. All the rest are at 2-1, 1-2-1. Winnipeg Jets over the Nashville Predators. Tampa Bay Lightning over Boston Bruins. And then Washington Capitals over the Pittsburgh Penguins. So those are surprising. I think that all of them are surprising. I expected maybe not Lightning and the Bruins, but the Predators and the Jets. I mean, I know it's only a 1-game difference, but still, you know, then this next game can mean a lot. So that'll do it for headlines. We're going to go and bring on my first guest, LeBreton, after these messages. You're listening to the Fan Show. Your home brings football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk.
He's no expert, but here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with the twist. It's the Fan Show.
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve ZC.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray, Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It's like that scene in The Simpsons, like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast, and it's fantastic.
Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lemmy, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like, that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo.
Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again.
So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right?
Yeah.
And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Omaha, we are calling an audible because James LeBreton is a little bit tied up with his dinner this evening, but we have the next best thing, which actually the next guest scheduled for this evening. So up first, Matt Farmer of Defy Wrestling. Welcome to the program. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing awesome, man. Last night's thing with Mick Foley was so much fun, and I didn't know what to expect going into it, but just seeing not only the wrestling community for Spokane come out and enjoy this, but just how down to earth he was. I don't know if you've seen him in an environment like that, but it was definitely something.
I have. I've been around Mick quite a bit, and he's a good guy. That's for sure.
Yeah, and he had to take off because he's got his tour continuing, the 20 years of Hell in the Cell. But you are in town now because we've got a Defy Wrestling event coming up this Saturday at 8 o'clock at the Hub Sports Center in Liberty Lake, and it's quite the card. Yep. Flip Gordon's on there, who's kind of a local boy-ish, from the Northwest area. How did this card come about? How you feel about it?
Oh man, I'm stoked for it. Actually, there's a lot of great talent on the card. Like you said, Flip is from the area. He grew up in Kalispell, Montana, but he spent a lot of time with his family here in Spokane. In fact, he has family that lives in Spokane. I believe his mom is actually living in Spokane now. So it's kind of a homecoming for Flip. And word on the street is this might be the last chance to see Flip on the independent scene, at least in the United States for some time.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a rising talent. I remember seeing a few shared articles and things about him last year and the year before, and since then there's been just a lot of momentum picked up, and then he tweeted a photo of him and John Cena next to him, not in the same picture, but just how he's we've never met, but you've been such an inspiration, and I tell you, that would be something if WWE got their hands on a guy like him.
It really would. And, one of the things that was holding Flip back for some time, and it wasn't holding him back, it was just the, responsibility that he was working in the Army National Guard. He'd been in the Army for numerous years, and then part of his contract, he served a few years in the National Guard. And that just, his terms with them just ended on Wednesday, so he will now be available full-time as a wrestler.
Yeah, and
No,
go ahead.
and I was just going to say that's going to open up a lot of opportunities for him because he won't be tied down to having to, 1 weekend a month with the Army. So.
Yeah, the no restrictions thing definitely should open up a lot of doors. I'm excited to see him perform this weekend. I know he's done very well for himself around the independent circuit. The thing is that people really sort of undersell the independent circuit, and a lot of it is because people just haven't seen the action on it. I mean, I'd hate to say thank God for Chris Jericho, because I know that there's been so many more matches other than that have happened on not just New Japan, but on the independent circuits like Ring of Honor and such. But him and his feud with Kenny Omega, I feel like it kicked down a door that was cracked open. And so now a lot of people are starting to kind of dive into these indie circuits and say, hey, there's some really good talent here. What's going on here? What's up with this? Like, how do you feel about where kind of maybe the turning of the tide happened?
I really agree, and Chris Jericho was very helpful in that. I completely agree with that. I believe it actually really started before that, though, with guys like Cody Rhodes.
Oh yeah,
the Young Bucks, and even guys like Flip or Brian Cage that who's going to be wrestling Flipboard in that night. Guys like Matt Riddle. These are guys that really have built their name without a national television outlet, and I think that like the Young Bucks, for instance, yes, they've had exposure with New Japan Pro Wrestling and with Ring of Honor, but they were building their names on the independent circuit before that. And I think right now in the United States especially, there's a lot of people looking for an alternative to WWE. I hear all the time people like, oh, I'm so tired of WWE. I'm so tired of wrestling. I think, well, do you watch independent pro wrestling? Because there's something for everybody out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're a fan of pro wrestling 15 years ago, there's somebody out there, there's a promotion out there that's doing something that you would be a fan of.
And I will be completely open and admit that I am one of those people that has kind of been flirting with the idea of, what's an alternative? What else is out there? But the problem is that we're such creatures of habit. For however long back you can remember, wrestling has been on Monday night. And wrestling for WWE is still on Monday night. Some of these independent circuits, it's a little bit harder to tap into them, as available as that is on a schedule as consistent as that, especially when during that entire time, WWE and the powers that be have spent nothing but their, just efforts and energy to build that into the empire that is. But
yeah, definitely.
I think that's going to change. I really do. I would like to see Ring of Honor, New Japan become more available to, I guess, the general public, because that's really who I think is missing out on great action in the ring, because that's what essentially these independent circuits are, is it's NXT, and people love NXT because it's storytelling done in the ring and not like a Piper's Pit kind of deal. It's like they tell the story through their match, through their rivalry. It's less talk, more action, and I love that. That's why I love NXT.
I agree, and I think like Defy Wrestling, for instance, would be closer to NXT than we would be to, say, a main roster WWE show.
Yeah.
We also seen with like the success of New Japan Pro Wrestling in the United States, they just tickets on sale for their Cow Palace, and they did just over 5,000 tickets, in the first day or so. That does volume for a promotion. Besides their limited access on Access Television and online, they've really made some inroads into the United States. And like you said, there is a research going on in the alternative to WWE. Ring of Honor's been with too. They just drew nearly 6,000 fans down in WrestleMania weekend with a Ring of Honor show. So there's definitely that feeling of something new coming.
Yeah, I really do like seeing certain names pop up in different circuits. Obviously, the Hardys had a great run through not only like Impact but Ring of Honor as well. Cody finding his ideal situation and a great character. With Ring of Honor, and then you've got Kenny Omega. Mm-hmm. And I'll be the first one to admit, even when it comes to getting the call up, as it were, from NXT, like I worry about a guy like Omega or Flip going to WWE, even if they started in NXT. It's just like I don't want them to ruin what they've worked so hard to build on their own, because Austin Aries, should have been a phenomenal talent, and he... happy trails to him. Neville, of course, having all the issues, and these are fantastic talents. They killed it in other, independent circuits, and then on NXT. And now you look, Finn Balor held the title for 24 hours. Samoa Joe has yet to hold a title. And they keep the title belt on their premiere show on Brock Lesnar, who wrestles once a month. It's just, I don't understand it. It seems like it's obvious.
The way that I kind of look at it from the financial state, for me, it's like where the guys go to make their mistake. It's where they go to, make the money to where they can go buy a home and maybe put something away for cities when they retire from the industry. But for guys who want to get out there and really compete and really perform and do what they do best and themselves be entertainers, performers, I think right now the independents. I had a conversation with Austin Aries, and he feels a lot the same way. He had that short one where they used him okay. Like he was on television quite a bit, but he just wasn't happy. That was his decision to leave. He knew that what he was getting paid at the time wasn't even he was going to be able to make on it. So Kaplan left on his own, and now he's greatly in demand throughout the world. He's representing Impact Wrestling. He's our Defy champion right now, and he's got. His schedule is full, and he's going to make great money this year. So, for his business himself, he made a right move.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was funny because the first event for WWE I got media credentialed for was an NXT house show up here in Spokane. It was the first one, and that whole show, the entire card, is what you see on the main roster now. So you had Bayley, Becky, Shinsuke, Samoa Joe, you had American Alpha, and then you had Austin Aries, and it was and Finn Balor was there too. You had Austin Aries and Samoa Joe in the main event. Samoa Joe was the champion then, and my buddy who I was sitting with leans over to me and he goes, "Can you just imagine that a year or 2 years ago, this would have been the main event of the biggest pay-per-view for Impact Wrestling?" And that's the comparison. Yeah. That's the realization. And it goes the other way too. A guy like Ellsworth can get released from WWE and he'll be the highest paid guy somewhere else. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, and companies like Impact Wrestling, for instance, they've really turned the corner and they've actually been producing a decent product themselves. You have Lucha Underground and Ring of Honor, where these are alternatives for guys to go to. The UK market's just booming right now for wrestlers. And the United States, one of the biggest difficulties as an independent promoter, believe it or not, is finding available dates for a lot of talent. That's one of the hardest things to do right now. Is a guy like Austin Reeves, it's being able to get him and make sure he's available for a day that you have a show, So if you go book a billing on X number X date, it might be difficult to book those guys on that date because there's so much in demand.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you about that since you are, in the thick of it. You're the guy that does that job. I reached out to Neil, formerly known as Emma, on WWE when she got released to see if we could book her for an interview on the show, and her agent got back to me and said, sorry, she's not doing press right now, just, being, dates. And I see her on social media, and she is all over the place. Is that something that you feel that the independent scene kind of needs to work with, maybe collaborate a little so that these guys aren't one place one night and then another the next, that they could maybe have like an easier to obtain schedule and get them booked and not kind of exhaust them or have to play luck of the draw?
Well, that is done on a limited basis. Like, there are certain promoters that we're friendly with, that I have relationships with, where we will actually call up and say, hey, we have to meet on this date, this Friday, we like on Saturday. Let's work together and let's put this light cost. We do that all the time. We have a couple wrestlers coming in tomorrow, as a matter of fact. That was something that we worked out with MW in Orlando, Florida, where we're going to work together to make sure that we have schedules together. There's promoters on the country that we do that with. Oregon on the West Coast. Certain wrestlers will come into the Northwest that I have a relationship with, and they'll reach out to other promoters and say, hey, could you use Joey Ryan on this date? Or would you like to use MVP on this date? Or Evan Bourne, the laundry list of guys.
Yeah.
So that it's done on a limited basis. It's going to be possible to get every, 150 promoters throughout the world. To pick them to agree something would be almost possible.
So minus cost, what is your favorite thing about being a promoter for an independent circuit?
The greatest thing is when you're at the event and you get fans reacting to what you've envisioned in your mind. one of the best examples of this is that of the 2 weeks ago in Seattle, Austin Aries rubbed LeBreton for the Defy Champions versus the Impact World Champion Austin Aries, title versus title. And the role of those 2 guys took the crowd on was made in the center of the building, every single one of them jumped out of their seat 3 or 4 times during that show. It was amazing. You know? That's the most rewarding thing, because it's something that I already envisioned in my mind when those fans would jump out of their seats, you know, at time, and we talked about and discussed. To me, that's the most rewarding thing.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny because I try to think of comparisons for wrestling on WWE and then on the independent circuit level to try to help kind of inform wrestling fans that I know, you know, like, well, if you like this, you'll probably like this for different reasons. And I remember when I was in LA for the BattleBot tapings, one of their founders is from the UK. And he was talking to me about American football, the NFL, which, you know, it's like, as an American, you know this brand. Like, this brand rules all when it comes to sports. But if you even hop across the pond, it's like 3rd down the list, maybe even 4th. And he goes, I don't understand how you guys can get so enthralled in such a boring sport. And I was just floored by the statement. And so we started talking to soccer and rugby, and that's what it is in the wrestling world. WWE is the NFL, where in America, like that, you understand that's how it's supposed to work. But then outside of here, you've got New Japan, you've got Ring of Honor, you've got all these circuits traveling all over the world, bringing you just as good a quality product. Maybe not the production value or the brand name that you're used to, but it's still just good.
Oh, definitely. You know, I would, if you go to, and I've said this before, if you go to a show, or even you go to a Monday Raw, and then a week or 2 later you go to a Farmer show in Seattle or Spokane, you're going to walk away from that independent show more entertained than you would on that WWE show. I don't guarantee it. Because it reaches out and grabs your emotions better than AW. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's like band that normally plays arenas and has huge production, pyrotechnics, a big screen, and they go and they have a show for an intimate crowd of like maybe 125 at like a local, maybe not necessarily dive bar, but you know, smaller venue. You're gonna have a better time probably because of the intimate setting at that smaller show than you would have minus all the, you know, the pro and flair and production you would have at the bigger one. And that's really what it comes down to. It's like the same product, but you know, you're getting just a bit more of like a personal touch here, and I
very
love that.
So very much.
So
me too.
Saturday at the Hub Liberty Lake, which I was surprised that this is the venue because normally these events happen at a place up north or another in downtown. So that's surprising, but I'm excited because I put the Hub. I think that'll probably be a spot. It starts at 8 o'clock. And what's the most exciting thing in your mind about this card we've got Saturday?
The most exciting? I would say there's 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, it's hard to say the most exciting, but Matt Riddle. I mean, if anybody's familiar with Matt Riddle, that might be one of the top 10 guys in the world now for producing on matches. You know, I don't think he's had just stellar matches. If you ask people that went to WrestleMania weekend, did dozens of shows or 9 or 10 shows, but all of you that Matt Riddle one of the standouts for the entire weekend. Also Brian Cage, that guy's a beast, but moves cruiserweight, you know. And of course Gordon Flip he's gonna really impress. It's gonna be he impress his family, and so he's gonna pull out all the stops.
All right, it is Defy Wrestling Saturday at the Hub Sports Center in Liberty Lake at 8 o'clock. Flip Gordon's homecoming, I guess, if you want to call it that. But Matt Farmer, the booking guy, the man behind the madness that makes it all come together. I am excited for my first Defy Wrestling event this Saturday, so I will see you then, sir. But thank you so much for taking some time to get us psyched.
Real quick, let me drop our website to it's defywrestling.com. You can get tickets for the event. defywrestling.com or at the door.
Still tickets available. Perfect. That is an excellent touch and a great point. So, all right, get your tickets, folks. If you're in the Spokane area, you won't want to miss this one. And Matt, thank you again. I will see you Saturday.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. Matt Farmer of Defy Wrestling. That's right. We got wrestling this weekend. And we've also got some co-working going on in Spokane. I don't know if you know this, but there's a place called Praxis. It is Spokane's new co-working space. In this space, they value diversity, inclusion, and a sense of community. Praxis loves to celebrate entrepreneurs. They're the ones behind the award ceremony, showcase, whatever you want to call it, where the fan show took home the 2018 Entrepreneur Award for Best Media. That's how you're listening to the award-winning fan show now. So they celebrate entrepreneurs, they collaborate together, and they help each other. That's the biggest thing, right? They help to create the best work of our lives. They're located in downtown Spokane, the Holly Mason Building, 157 South Howard Street, Spokane, Washington, 99201. Their lease is for a space that is 3,500 square feet, and it is equipped with a small kitchenette, a conference room, an office, a large open area. There are excellent parking options, a coffee shop at the bottom, Rocket Bakery, and the space is only a 9-minute walk from the lovely Riverfront Park. Starting at $275 a month, they are offering month-to-month memberships or even a discounted membership for longer commitments. Membership to Praxis includes a personal desk, access to all of the business and recreational amenities, a key, Wi-Fi, and the use of private rooms as they are available. There are no hidden fees, no conference room fees, no limited amount of minutes that you can spend in certain areas. $275 gets you everything that Praxis has to offer. Well, how do you make this all happen, you may ask? Hit up Robbie. Fantastic individual. 509-220-0817 or Robbie at praxiscoworking.com. Praxis, be yourself at work. And that will bring us to the last commercial break before our last guest of the evening. We did a little flippity-floppity, and here we go. We'll be right back.
This is The Sheet.
Gets me all revved up. My face is now red. My ears are just freaking boiling.
He's so raw that Sky hates him.
Yeah, he had 51 touchdowns, 4,900 total yards.
I know y'all like that, but I got to run. And only in Alabama that could happen, I have to say.
They're so good, man. They would win the Big Ten if they were in the Big Ten. You could be doing something vision-based in front of you and reach down and grab a handful of insane goodness.
Give it to him. Kudos. I'm clapping like a golfer. Very good, Johnny. I'm proud of you.
Wow, you guys agree on something again? I'm very impressed. You ever had a bad week? You know, just you walk outside, step in a puddle, like right when you walk outside. I mean, how's there a puddle right outside your house? Or you stand on the curb and somebody drives by and splashes water up on you? Or it's just raining on you, not anyone else?
I will tell you, before you go any further, I cannot hear Chad when he speaks.
Good. Here, listen to the sheet, man. I don't really know what we're doing.
Every Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. right here on WBLZ Sports.
Whether it be your industrial, commercial, or residential needs, Gen Service is the electrical contractor for you. The Gen Service team has the expertise, commitment, and educational years to help you solve all your electrical concerns. They have you in their best interest with helpful suggestions to accommodate your every want. Give them a call, no matter the size of the job, at 740-438-7173. Mention WBLZ Sports, and you'll get a discount. That's Gen Service, 740-438-7173.
This is Nick Ciccarelli, the mad scientist of sports. Join me and Dr. D, Derek Jones, live every Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific, for the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. The big intellect, the experiments on the chalkboard, and the guest subjects will be rolling in. Mad Scientist Sports Lab, only on WBLZ Sports, where we got balls.
Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. He has over 30 years of painting experience. He's interior, exterior, commercial, or residential. Doug Peffer covers it all. Is your house looking ugh? We'll call on Doug. Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. 404-966-3361. Mention WBLZ Sports and get a special We've Got Balls discount. That's Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. 404-966-3361.
Check out Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL legends live on. We bring you 5 NFL legends every week, sharing their stories and insights, plus our spotlight on the positive. Hear which players are doing great things in their communities. Now on WBLZ Sports Talk Radio and WBLZSports.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and here to put a nice red and gold bow on 49ers week here on the show. It is James LeBreton of 49ers website and Niner Noise. Welcome back, my friend. How you doing?
Great, Rich. How you doing?
Doing good, man. It's been a great Niners week here on the show, and I think the consensus is pretty much that the draft, it's what it needed to be, right? Nothing special, nothing sexy. We got some pieces that we felt we were missing, and now all signs point to 2018 and let the speculation begin. What are your thoughts post-draft?
Thoughts post-draft. Thoughts post-draft each round, or hindsight's 2020 thoughts post-draft?
Let's go hindsight's 2020. I always love that vision.
Of course, yeah. Hindsight 2020, we've got some pieces for the future. We've got some exciting pieces. And we've got a couple of positions with a lot more depth than I thought we would. Let's put it that way.
Okay. What grade, I guess, would you give the 49ers draft class of 2018?
You know what? I've seen a lot of A's out there. I think I'm resting more toward a B, and I don't mean to put a whole, a downward twist kind of a bow on it. But there were a couple picks I scratched my head on. Hopefully they'll work out. I think for a lot of people, the first two picks, at least for most people, they thought it was going to be an edge and a guard, and we really didn't get that the whole draft. So for me, that was kind of a letdown. That was the post each round kind of thought. But, like I said, there's some pieces that were gathered for the future. There's some pieces that we got and didn't know we needed them until after the fact with the Trent Brown trade. So, anytime that you go into a draft and mind you, none of us are GMs and we're not head coaches. And as much as we much as we study up on the draft and we know what certain teams' needs are, not only can anything happen, but we're not the decider of that team. So, I mean, you could say edge and guard, and they could be thinking cornerback and, tight end. I mean, not that we need a tight end, in my opinion, but it could be the furthest from what you think it is. And that's just the draft. And I've seen a lot of people comment, and add thoughts about how it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And I said, listen, you know what? I kind of toyed with the idea that maybe Chubb would fall. And it was a pipe bomb dream. But at the end of the day, I said, until, there were 8 people ahead of us, but it was 7 teams because the Browns had 2 picks. I said, until those 7 GMs come into a room with John Lynch and look at me and say, hey, none of us are taking Chubb, I said, anything is possible.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, the guys that I've talked to, Robert Alberino, 49er Mark, obviously, we want to be optimistic at this point. It wasn't looking very good last season at the beginning. We just come off of a horrible season, 2-14, and then looking to maybe repeat that. Worse, one win, and you get Jimmy G, and it's like a whole rejuvenation has come over this team, and now they're playing harder, they're playing smarter, they've got something to play for. So, yeah, I have my reservations about year 2 of the Lynch-Shanahan era, but I also have a lot of respect for Lynch because I know that a lot of people doubted him. And sure, he could be like a one-year wonder GM, but I just don't see that being the case. So, as ironic as it is, as cliche as it is, I trust the process. But I am still excited for this upcoming season. What was something that you were wanting to happen that didn't? That's got you, I guess, more kind of reserved yourself?
Well, I was waiting for a trade up, and the trade up happened to 44, right? And they picked up Pettis. But, initially, I didn't do a lot of draft work up on Pettis. If we went wide receiver and they did trade up, I wanted the big splash, right? Because you still had Ridley and Kirk there at wide receiver. So I thought, well, man, if they're trading up, it's going to be a huge grab, right? Initially, when I saw the Pettis pick, I didn't get it. I looked at some tape on him because when the pick came in, I wasn't in front of the TV. I was actually out. And then when I came in and they started flashing, we started looking at tape on him. And I said, wow, that's amazing. I said, this guy is explosive. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. He definitely brings the energy. And when he gets in the field, he just has a knack for making people miss. And, that's great. My goodness, you turn a 5-yard gain into 40 yards, and that's what we need, big plays, But then I started to evaluate. I said, well, at face value, when they talked Pettis up, they said, well, he's a slot receiver, and he's really, really good at punt returns, right? And I sat back and I said, that's Trent Taylor. Why did they draft Pettis? And then I thought about the Shanahan system, right? I thought about he's a big, tall guy. He could be a red zone threat. He fights for the ball. There's always all these components of Pettis that when you add them together, see it, like I said, at face value, they show you he's this kind of receiver and he's this kind of returner. But then you think about the Shanahan system and how he likes to move people around, and there's no reason that someone like Pettis with his size, he's a little slight, was he like 183, 185 pounds or something, but with his height, I'm sure he could get bigger in size if he wanted to. I mean, the guy could definitely be a number 1 or a number 2, right? I've seen a lot of people say that the future is like Dante Pettis, Kendrick Bourne, and Trent Taylor, which, to me would be a fine trio. Yeah, I think for me, I wanted the big splash, and McGlinchey completely threw me off. McGlinchey, I think, has the capability to be the leader of that offensive line, especially with someone like Staley going out in, 2-3 years. We're being optimistic, but we're also realistic, right? You'd like to see Staley stick around for a while, but, I mean, retirement is imminent for everyone.
Yeah.
So someone like McGlinchey, I think, is a fantastic addition. But, a lot of people thought that it was going to be a pass rusher, maybe Landry, maybe Davenport. I kind of toyed with Davenport a little bit. I like his measurables. I like his play. But I really thought it was going to be Edmonds or Roquan Smith, right? But then when Smith went number 8, I'm like, oh, it's got to be Edmonds. And it's funny, when you watch the draft, if you look at the crowd, when they say Mike McGlinchey, they all look at each other and they have no idea what's going on. So it was definitely a spin. If you go back and look, you'll see that, if you saw it before. Lynch and Shanahan were high on linebackers. They said it, and then throughout the visits and people coming to the facility and them going through the draft process, they just liked McGlinchey so much. That was the pick. And like I said, a couple of head scratchers. Then when they traded Trent Brown, I didn't think that they drafted McGlinchey and then they figured Trent Brown. I think that was the plan all along. They knew Trent Brown wasn't the fit. And as great of a pass protector as Trent Brown is, he will do a lot better in the Belichick system, without question. So I think it's a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, I agree on that. It's the surprises, I think, that get you, but who knows? I think that this year we'll get to see a lot more of what Shanahan has in mind as far as the offense goes. I'm curious to see how well Lynch handles things in his second year as front office, the face of the front office. What's the one transaction, I guess you would call it, that you'd like to see between now and opening day?
Between now and opening day, well, I think you still need to address the pass rusher position. So what about somebody like Shane Ray or Fowler? Those guys they're not Jacksonville and Denver both already said they're not exercising the 5th-year option on those guys. So, why not bring them in? If they're not the answer, well, then fine. My biggest thing is that you bring the numbers in and may the best man win. So it would be great to see pass rush. I know that Lynch has already voiced his opinion. They're big on the guys they have there. And while most of us may have counted out someone like Eli Harold, or maybe you don't think Cassius March can fill that role, we really haven't seen him do that yet. You had a couple seasons where Harold was on the roster, but he didn't do much, or he wasn't utilized right. And if Shanahan has a vision for that particular player at that role, I really don't have any reason to argue with him or think that he doesn't know what he's doing. You talked about Lynch. There's no reason to think that it's he had that great year and it's a sophomore slump. I really don't think it is either. I think Lynch is just that guy that you want to play for. He's very smart. He's aggressive when he wants something. They're not just throwing money at everybody. Last year you saw them bring in a bunch of players who maybe a lot of people didn't think that they were going to be so great or they weren't high on, but what they did was they put guys together that know the system. They put guys together that have played together before. And anytime that you have people who have already worked together, that's a recipe for success. Now, look at the defense right now, right? You've got Sherman. You've got Cassius Marsh. You've got Brock Coyle, right?
Yeah.
And then you got Malcolm Smith. They've all played together in Seattle, right? So now you're looking at the defense and you're saying, well, out of these 11 guys, if those 4 guys are on the field already, they're already up to speed. Maybe they're not up to speed for the actual Shanahan system and there's still a lot to learn, but as far as chemistry and gelling with that player, they've already got that to their advantage. So, like I said, I agree with you 100%. I think Lynch is going to continue to be an outstanding GM, and I have no doubts that Kyle Shanahan is the right man for the head coaching job.
Excellent. Well, then the last question, the question of the week, is what are you most looking forward to about the 2018 season for the 49ers?
I want to see Jimmy G under center. I think that's everybody's Mount Everest right now, right? Or they're amazing. That's just a thing to look forward to. You're talking about a guy who came in to a team who couldn't buy a win. But, the energy was there, right? We talked about it. They were the happiest 2-win team of the league. And it was like amazing. The camaraderie never left, right? All these guys were still down for each other. They were still fighting hard for each other. And it was almost like they never really lost because it didn't weigh heavily on them. But anytime that I can take a quarterback who has nothing but success after digesting a quarter or less of that playbook, what's that? What did he really know? They said 5, 6, maybe 7 plays, right? And It wasn't that it was beyond his scope. It was that he had just come in. He wasn't even, the Shanahan playbook is already this huge, it's this difficult playbook as it is. He runs this amazing offense, and then you bring somebody in who has 2 career starts and then comes in and goes 5 straight, goes 5-0. Now that he has the off season to digest that entire playbook, and he's got, granted, a lot of people might say, well, now the pressure's on. Last year he didn't really. It was they already lost. They already lost all these games, and they only had 2 wins. So let her rip. I don't think that's the case at all. I think if anything, he's still undefeated, and he's going to lose some games. It would be nice if he didn't, but we're all going to lose games, right?
Yeah.
But I think the go-to amazing thing about this season is to see Jimmy G for a full season with a full playbook, and he's got some more weapons now. And if Pettis is that guy in the red zone, or if he's that number one that expands the role, well, then great. But regardless, you've got 2 really good offensive tackles now. Not that Trent Brown wasn't, but, looking toward the future, they've got that. The tackle's the most important position on that line for this style of offense. You've got that center who will continue to build amazing chemistry. Richburg is amazing. He's better suited for this system. They've really, as much as you may not have gotten that sexy pick that you wanted in the draft, or you didn't get that giant contract to, maybe that one guy you wanted in free agency, which I'm glad they didn't, by the way. You have all these functional pieces that's going to make that $137.5 million investment operate so much smoother. That's got to be the go-to for the season. It's Jimmy G with a full playbook for 16 games.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think that's the most exciting thing for me. Week 1, San Francisco in Minnesota, a team that had one of the best tastes in their mouth after rattling off 5 straight wins with its new franchise quarterback, goes into the home of the team with probably the worst taste in its mouth after falling one shy of being the first team to ever host a Super Bowl. And then you've got the quarterback situation. Kirk Cousins staring down the what we all thought was going to be his home in 2018 is now where Jimmy G sits upon the throne. So, James, it's going to be an exciting season. I can't wait to talk about it, talk to you about it as it goes on. But, hey, enjoy the rest of the offseason, and thanks for taking the time to be on tonight.
Anytime, Rich. Love being on the show. Without question, it's going to be an interesting season.
All right. James LeBreton, everybody. Hey, you have a great night.
You too, Rich. Thanks.
And that's going to do it for this Thursday edition, end of the week, end of Niners week here on The Fan Show. I want to thank all my guests from this week. It's been fantastic having them all on. Robert Alberino, that man. Too kind. And then, of course, 49er Mark James LeBreton. We had Daryl Monroe, and then we had Matt Farmer on this evening. And last night, who else was on before? Oh, Connor Ferguson, of course. Power Rankings Day. So don't forget, The Fan Show is at a new time, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio. Listen to WBLZ Sports through the WBLZ Sports app. Check out the website, thefanshow.com. You can also listen live on thefanshow.com or Spreaker.com, and all the social media platforms are there for your viewing and following pleasure. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and, of course, Facebook. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, best of luck to you and yours. Go Niners, and remember, of course, it's all fun and games until you butt fumble. Good night!
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the Fan Show.